Greetings, early childhood education students. This week's learning is all about science learning in early childhood education. Let's take a look. First of all, we're going to do a little overview of science in early childhood education. I have several key points that I want to address with you. First point is science is one kind of curriculum area for young children to learn about. Children learn about science, they learn about math, they learn about language arts, they learn about all kinds of traditional topics in early childhood. A big difference is, though, in early childhood, children do not learn a single curriculum area alone. For example, they don't learn science all by itself. Rather, when they're learning science, they're also developing language skills. They learn how to describe what they're observing. They develop fine muscle skills, such as using tweezers to pick something up. They develop social skills, such as sharing materials, cooperating, problem solving together, etc. So science is not a standalone topic like it would be in high school. Rather, it is one kind of curriculum area that we address in early childhood education along with several others. As a reminder, as we all know, children learn best through play. So with regards to science, when we're teaching children about science, we would always think hands-on and minds-on. Whenever possible, we want to engage children in using their hands and also thinking about what they're doing. So hands-on and minds-on is very important. Teachers want to provide playful opportunities for children to learn in the way that is natural to them. Since play is a natural way for children to learn, we want to teach them everything that we can through playful activities and playful opportunities. Next key point is passionate teachers build passionate learners. So whenever possible, teachers want to be very enthusiastic, very energetic, very passionate about what they're teaching. And when we're passionate, children often catch this passion and they become very interested, very curious, very intrigued as well. So passionate teachers build passionate learners. Next point is teachers model dispositions such as working hard, asking questions, being curious, trying new things, being persistent, etc. So a disposition is really defined as a way of reacting or a way of responding to something. So if I have a project ahead of me and I work really hard, that is my way of responding to that project. So that is my disposition. If I am faced with something that I don't understand yet, a response would be for me to be curious about it so I can learn about it. So when teachers model these things, then children start to pick up on these things and start to have those dispositions as well. A few more key points. Children are naturally curious and intrinsically interested in science learning. Science is one of those things that people just tend to be interested in, especially young children. So we don't have to motivate them to be interested. Rather, they're intrinsically interested in science learning. Last key point here is understanding the scientific process is a foundational skill because it is used in all science learning. So from very young children to college and beyond, the scientific process is a skill or an approach that everybody uses in science learning. I want to take a quick look at the scientific process for early childhood students. I found on the internet a little poster here that shows the scientific method, and it breaks it down into 6 key steps. The first step is question. Ask yourself, what do I want to learn more about? Or I wonder what would happen if. After question, number 2 is hypothesize. Research to help you make an educated guess or a hypothesis, and then answer your question. So you want to think about it. You might want to do some research to figure out what others have thought on this topic. So we want to hypothesize and make an educated guess as to what we think will happen. The next part of scientific methods, step 3, is to experiment. We want to test our hypothesis by making a plan and conducting an experiment. So we'll show some examples of experiments later on. Number 4, as we're doing the experiment, we want to observe and record. We want to make careful observations, looking with our eyes and listening, and then we want to write down what happens. So making careful observations and writing down what happens. Number 5 is to analyze. So we've done the experiment, we've recorded it, we've made some observations. Now we want to use the information to draw conclusions about our experiment. Was our hypothesis correct, or were we incorrect in our hypothesis? So we're going to analyze the results. And then the last step in the scientific method is to share the results. Explain your results by presenting your experiment, your observations, and your conclusions. So share it with classmates, share it with teachers, etc. This was another slide that I found. So if you were doing science in your classroom and you wanted to point out these 6 steps, it would be cool to have these posters hanging up in your classroom. Ask a question, do research, form hypothesis, test your hypothesis in the experiment, analyze your results, and then report. So a neat visual that you could have in your classroom to help children learn and remember the scientific method. Now we're going to turn our attention to 7 different approaches for teaching science in early childhood education. These are just 7 approaches that I thought of that I thought would be helpful to share with students. The first one is to set up a science center in your classroom. Just as our classroom would have a block center, a reading center, perhaps a writing center, a sensory table, just a lot of different interest centers, we want to set up a science center in our classroom. So I have some pictures to show you, but first I want to read this quote to you. It says, "The science center in my classroom is always a busy place. Students can observe, experiment, create, construct, classify, compare, and question. Students are natural-born scientists. They are curious and eager to explore the world and everything in it. As teachers, it is our job to nurture their scientific experiment and help students form questions, investigations, collect data, and share their conclusions. Make your science center amazing to enhance their experiences." So this quote came from an experienced teacher just about how she uses a science center in her classroom. Now we're going to explore some pictures. You'll probably recognize this type of picture. It's from Pocket of Preschool. So this is how to set up your science center. First of all, as we've learned, we want to label everything. So we see the different containers down there. One has shells, one has magnifying glasses, there's magnet wands down there. So just a variety of different things. And you want to label each container. It's helpful to label it on all 4 sides. So no matter which way the child puts the box back on the shelf, a label is facing outward. So make sure you label everything. You want to include science tools in your science center. So pictured here are some magnifying glasses, and you can also have goggles there. Even though you're not going to have anything that is probably really dangerous, it kind of makes children understand the importance of science when you have realistic goggles that they can wear while they're experimenting. More science tools would be sorting trays and tweezers. So pictured here are a variety of different kind of seeds, and the child is sorting the seeds into the different spots on the tray. So cool to have a magnifying glass for that, and cool to have tweezers for doing that and developing fine motor skills. More science tools include scales, rulers, tools to measure, etc. So the scale is pictured in the lower left corner there, where they can see which rock is bigger, has a greater mass, or that kind of thing. So those are different tools that you can include in your science. More science tools, pipettes, kind of like eyedroppers. You can have test tubes, pie plates. Pictured here are some kind of some paint samples that you might get at a hardware store or at a home improvement store. And then they have different colors, and they're trying to mix the colors together to come up with colors similar to those on the different paint samples. Another thing to have in your science center are natural materials that kids can examine, explore, and talk about. So pictured here are some leaves on a tray in the lower left. Pumpkins are very fun to explore the texture and the weight. You can even cut them open and see what's inside. Also pictured here are some different kind of rocks, some little tree logs, and then this thing over on the left here is a big magnifying glass. So you put something beneath it, and then you can magnify it so you can see it even better. And then there's a box of shells here, so different nature materials to explore in your science center. Another nice thing to have in classrooms are living things. So you could have a pet fish, you could have plants, different things like that, so children can explore living things and observe living things. Another thing with science are building materials. Part of the part of science is STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. So with the engineering part of it, we want to try to build different things. And I thought this was a cool picture because it has little cards picturing different block structures to see if you can replicate the structure that you see in the picture. Another thing that you can do in your science area is to have a sensory table. So pictured here is a sensory table with different kind of seeds in it, scoops, tweezers, some paper towel tubes, different containers, etc. So exploring in your science table. Another nice addition to have in your science area would be books. So pictured here, various nonfiction books. The one in the middle is talking about what is a scientist. So that will be a fun one to read to really see what a scientist does and who a scientist is. And then pictured here are some various fiction books about science. So it's cool to always have fiction books and nonfiction books because kids are going to like both of them. Pictured here are some magnets, some magnet wands, and some horseshoe magnets, and then different things that will stick to the magnets and things that will not stick to the magnets. So kids can explore magnetism and see how that works. This is a short video that we're going to watch in class of a kindergarten teacher. And I found this video when I was researching stuff, and I just wanted to show this video in class because it shows a really neat approach of this teacher. And I really found his ways of working with students to be very, very good. So I wanted to show that to our students in class. So we just looked at setting up a science center in your classroom. Another idea is to offer special exploration activities, and I have about three to show here. First one is a classic, a sink and float. So you have a tub of water and you have various objects, and kids have to figure out whether an object would sink or float. If you have an older classroom, you could even explore why things would sink and why things would float, and a very interesting inquiry that you could do on that. Similarly, you could do magnetic and non-magnetic. So you could have some magnets and you could have a bunch of different objects and have the kids kind of sort the objects as to which ones are attracted to the magnet and which ones are not attracted. Again, if you want to dig deeper, you could explore just what makes something that a magnet will be attracted to. I explored this with some kids one time, and we learned that they had to have iron in them. So aluminum doesn't work, but anything that has iron in it is something attracted to a magnet. Another special science area you could have ramps. Kids love to build ramps and they like to roll things down them. So you could do this and have several different things, and some things will roll down and some things won't roll down. So kids are going to experiment with this and learn how to differentiate what's going to roll and what's not going to roll. They could also work with having the ramp be at different angles or different pitches or different slopes, and explore what happens when you roll objects down and the ramps are different. A third approach is to conduct classroom experiments. So things that you can do with kids, and I think we have about 6 experiments I want to show you here. First of all, the steps in an experiment coming from that scientific method. We want to ask a question. Just what do we want to find out from our experiment? We want to form a hypothesis. What do we think is going to happen in our experiment? Then we want to run the experiment. We want to test and see what's going to happen when we explore the materials in our experiment. We want to record and observe the results. A lot of times young children who aren't writing yet are merely going to observe the results, but teachers can record them by writing them down for children so we can have a written record of the results. Then you're going to analyze the results, really think about them, really think what happened, and then finally we want to share the results, tell others about them, about what we found out in our experiment. So the first example I have is one called water walking. So you can take a look at the picture here, and you're going to see several jars and some paper towels that connect them. So the steps in water walking are shown here. You're going to need 5 or more clear plastic cups, some water, some food coloring, some paper towels. The process, you're going to set those 5 cups on a table. You're going to fill them half full with water. You're going to add food coloring to some of the cups, every other cup, but you're going to leave a couple cups with clear water. Then you're going to roll some paper towels, and you're going to take these paper towels and form bridges between one cup and another. Then you will predict and observe. So just to go back one slide if we can. Oh, I guess I can't go back one slide. But what we will see in this is the water is going to walk from cup to cup. Whirlpool in a bottle is another one we're going to do in classrooms. So we need water, we need plastic bottles in pairs, food coloring, glitter is optional, but that kind of looks cool when it goes between them. And then you also need connecting tubes, which are also known as tornado tubes. So the process for this, you're going to fill one bottle about 2/3 full of water. You can add food coloring if you wish. You can add glitter if you wish. Then you're going to screw on the connecting tube. And then you're going to attach the second bottle, so you'll end up with 2 bottles joined by the connecting tube, and then you're going to spin the bottle and see what happens. So this is a cool one where you can learn about a vortex. A vortex is where air moves through water. So anyway, we will do this one in class. Another one is to create some lava lamps. And we know that oil and water don't mix, and that's really the principle of a lava lamp. So I'm not going to read through all of the steps in this process, but a lava lamp is something we'll do in our classroom. Another thing we're going to do is to make some magnetic exploration bottles. So as pictured here, we have bottles, and they have various things in them. Some things will be attracted to the magnet and some things will not be. So kids can kind of create a hypothesis as to which ones will be attracted to the magnet wand and which ones will not. So some exploration bottles. This, again, are the materials needed and the process for making magnetic exploration bottles. Ice cube melting, a super duper basic one, but you're going to have about 4 cups or so. As pictured here, there's ice and water. There's ice with sugar, there's ice with salt, and then there's just ice. And then the kids are going to create hypotheses as to which ice cube will melt fastest. So a fun way to experiment and see what happens with ice. You could also do ice and warm water and see what happens with that one. This one I'm looking forward to doing in classroom. It's fizzing ice cubes, and what you're going to do is you're going to mix some baking soda with water until the baking soda is dissolved. So what you have there is a basic solution. Then you're going to pour the baking soda into ice cube trays and freeze it. And then when the ice cubes are frozen, you're going to place the ice cubes in a pan. And then using an eyedropper, you're going to drop vinegar on the ice and see what happens. So what will happen is that the ice is going to fizz because you're combining the vinegar with a basic solution from the baking soda. So that will be a neat one to do in class. We're going to also do bouncing bubbles in class. So, if you've ever tried to catch a bubble, it's very difficult to do, but there is a way of doing it. So we're going to mix up some bubble solution and we're going to blow some bubbles and we're going to try to catch the bubbles first using our bare hands, and then we're going to catch the bubbles with some stretch gloves on and just see how we're able to with the stretch gloves on, but not with our bare hands. So we will experiment with that, and then we will try to figure out why we were able to catch them with gloves, but not with bare hands. So those were some experiments that you can do in your classroom. Experiments are fun because kids get to get involved. They get to try stuff out. They get to form hypotheses. So just whenever you can do an experiment in the classroom, it's a helpful thing. Another way to learn about science is by exploring science and nature in the great outdoors. So you're encouraged to take a nature walk at all different times of year, and you're going to see different things in nature. So pictured here, some kids seeing some fall leaves, and another child looking at some moss growing on a tree. So a couple things that you could see on a nature walk. Another thing you can do is to do a nature scavenger hunt. So pictured here is a worksheet I found on the internet showing different things. So as you take your nature walk, you're going to see how many of these things you see and place a little check mark by it. So each kid on a nature walk could have a little clipboard with their sheet and with a pencil, and they could be watching for things and check it off when they find it. Another thing that you can do on a nature walk is to give everybody a little kind of a paper lunch bag or something like that, or a little basket, and they can carry it with them and they can collect nature items. And then when you get back to school, you can make a nature collage as pictured here on the left, or you could put things out on your exploration table and you could add some magnifying glasses and various things like that to help you explore the different objects you found on your nature walk. Pictured here are exploring some of those nature items that you can either gather from a walk. You can't gather all these from a walk, but these are different things that you can do in nature. So you can look for leaves, look for pine cones, look for acorns. You can jump in puddles. You can look for different kinds of trees. So a lot of different things that you can see in nature. A fifth approach to helping kids learn about science are to use videos from the internet and YouTube. So these are best really when it's something that you don't kind of have at your fingertips. As we know, children learn through play, they learn through doing. They can learn some stuff through watching, but it's really best if they can be more involved. So I've included a few videos here. So we don't have volcanoes in Illinois, but if you want to learn about volcanoes, there are a lot of neat videos on volcanoes. Pictured here is also some on mountains where you can learn about mountains, you can learn about zebras or any other animals. So the beauty of the internet, the beauty of YouTube, are there a lot of good materials that we can help kids learn about things that we won't find in our own backyard. So we can learn from videos. We could also watch science experiments. So pictured here is a Steve Spangler one doing it on Ellen, but we can watch videos and learn from them as well. Another thing we can do are to take field trips or to have classroom visitors. I went with my son's class to the DuPage Children's Museum, a cool place if you have been there. Pictured on the left here are some giant pegs, kind of like a light bright board, but you slip the pegs in and you can make different designs, and the light shines through the translucent pegs, so that's fun. They also have a building area where there's a lot of different tools that kids can work with an adult, and they can build different things, so that's a neat part of the museum. They also have different things with air. So pictured here on the left are some tubes that have air going through them, and you can put different objects in, like scarves or little pom-pom balls, and just see what happens when the air blows them around. So that's a neat thing that you can do. In addition to taking the field trips, you can have different experts and different things come to your classroom and share with the kids. The last thing that I have here are participating in school science fairs. So some of you may remember them, but I just grabbed a couple pictures off the internet of a science fair on bouncing balls, and you can see which ball bounces the highest, and look at that. And another one on rotten teeth, where it has different drinks and the effects that those have on tooth decay. So science fair is definitely for older kids, but since this early childhood class is really from birth through third grade, I thought I'd include science fairs as well. So just to summarize what we have done today, we've explored some key points regarding science learning and young children. We have taken a look at the scientific process and the 6 distinct steps in the scientific process. And then we explored 7 different approaches to teaching science to young children. These included offering interest centers in your classroom with science activities, offering special exploration activities, different things that you can have in your classroom the kids can explore, doing experiments with kids, so some real hands-on experimentation in your classroom. Another one was exploring science and nature outdoors, taking nature walks, that sort of thing. Learning from videos and from the internet. So we have a lot of resources at our fingertips now, and we can help children learn how to appropriately learn from the internet and from videos available. We could also take field trips, like I showed to the DuPage Children's Museum. You could also have classroom visitors come in and teach about what they do. And then lastly, I spoke of science fairs as another way. So really a lot of different ways that we can help kids learn about science. The real key is for us to make sure that we make science fun, make sure it's relevant to kids' lives, just so they can start exploring science from a very young age. At this point in our classroom, we would have a short question and discussion period, but I thank all of you for attending to this learning on science in early childhood education. Thank you.